Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are joining us from. Thank you for joining us today as we present today's Tech Talk on Source to Pay Business Process Overview in Dynamics 365 Finance and Supply Chain Management. This is an updated Tech Talk of the previously delivered Tech Talk of Procure to Pay and is more aligned with end-to-end business process guides. My name is Hiren Nayak, and I will be moderating this session. We are broadcasting this session through Teams Town Hall. This session is being recorded on behalf of Microsoft Corporation. To present today's session, I am being joined by my colleagues, Matthew Binase and Adi Vijayashankar, who are also Senior Fast Track Solution Architects. With that, let's dive in. In terms of agenda, we will first cover overview of Source to Pay, where we will cover what is sourcing and procurement, types of procurement, benefits of Source to Pay. Then we'll discuss end-to-end business processes in Source to Pay. We'll also like to cover use cases and show you the demo of each of the Source to Pay processes. In the end, we'll share some useful resources and have also some time for Q&A. Now let's go into the Source to Pay overview. The Source to Pay process is a term used to describe the entire process of purchasing goods or services from a supplier and paying for those goods and services. This process includes all the steps from the initial procurement request to the final payment to the vendor. Now let's review what is sourcing and procurement. Sourcing is a specific segment under a procurement cycle that refers to identifying, evaluating and selecting vendors to obtain goods, services required for a business operations. It's a critical step in the procurement cycle and significantly determines the quality, cost, and availability of goods or services purchased. By doing so, sourcing maintains the organization's supply chain and guarantees that the organization always has access to the tools it needs to deliver on its objectives. Procurement, on the other hand, encompasses the entire end-to-end process of acquiring goods and services. It includes identifying the needs, sourcing, negotiating, purchasing, receipt and inspection of goods, invoicing, payment, and supplier management. This comprehensive end-to-end process involves collaboration from numerous individuals across the organizations to ensure that all the purchases are appropriately sourced, approved and paid for. The teams involved in this process encompasses procurement, purchasing, accounts payable, operations, and naturally all the teams that requires these purchases. I will now hand it over to Matthew to give overview about the procurement types, benefits of source to pay processes in an organization, and stakeholders involved in this process. Matthew, over to you.
Thanks, Aaron. So we have two types of procurement. Direct procurement, also known as good or production procurements, involve the acquisition of materials, components, or goods that are directly incorporated into the production or sold to a customer. Example of direct procurement items include raw materials, component, machinery, equipment, specialized tools. For instance, in the automotive industry, direct procurement involves sourcing engines, tires, steel, and other components needed to manufacture vehicles. Direct procurement items can also include final product. For instance, a retailer can buy vehicles and sell them to final customers. Indirect procurement, also referred to as non-production procurement, pertain to the acquisition of goods, services, or resources that are not directly incorporated into the final product, but are necessary to support the organization's overall operations. These are typically goods and services that are not specific to the industry or product being produced. Examples of indirect procurement items include office supplies, IT equipment, maintenance and repair services, marketing services, professional services, such as legal or consulting, utilities, and facility management. The source to pay process is a term used to describe the entire process of sourcing for goods or services to paying for them. The source to pay process typically includes the following steps. Identify the need for goods or services. These processes include requests for quotation, purchase requisition contracts, and purchase orders, which can be planned or unplanned. Planned purchase orders can be generated automatically from supply or demand forecast. Supplier selection. The procurement team evaluates potential suppliers and selects the one that meet the requirements. Purchase order creation. A purchase order is created and sent to the supplier. It specifies the good or services required, the price, delivery date, and other terms and conditions. Invoice receipt and verification. The supplier sends an invoice for good or services, and the invoice is checked for accuracy and completeness. Invoice approval. The invoice is approved for payment, and the account payable team processes the payment. The supplier is paid for the good or services, usually by electronic fund transfer. Records keeping. All relevant documents, including purchase order, invoice, and payment details, are recorded and stored for future reference. Reporting. Financial and operational reports analysis help keep track on the performance of the source-to-pay process. When your organizations plan to include technology solutions to assist with the source-to-pay process, there are several benefits the solution can help provide. Increase efficiency. Dynamics 365 can automate and streamline many aspects of the source-to-pay end-to-end process. This way, organizations can reduce the time and effort required to complete tasks, such as creating purchase order, receiving goods, or processing invoices. Improve accuracy. Automate processes reduce the risk of human error, such as data entry mistake or duplicate payments, leading to more accurate financial reporting and fewer accounting discrepancies. Greater visibility. The technology solution can provide real-time visibility into the status of purchase order or payments, allowing users to track process, identify bottlenecks, and resolve issues quickly. Better supplier relationships, improve communication and collaboration with suppliers, thus faster payment processing, can help to build stronger relationships and improve supplier satisfaction. Cost savings. The increased efficiency, accuracy, and visibility that you achieve from implementing a technology solution can lead to cost saving in several areas. Such areas include reduced processing times, better negotiated prices with vendors, and lower accounting costs. Enhance compliance. A technology solution can help to enforce compliance with procurement policies, reduce the risk of fraud, and provide an audit trail for regulatory compliance. Increase scale as an organization grows and their procurement needs increase. Dynamics 365 is a scalable platform that can accommodate larger volumes of transactions and adapt to changing business requirements. Implementing a technology solution such as Dynamics 365 to support the source-to-pay process end-to-end involves a range of stakeholders from various departments and levels of the organization. Here are some of the typical stakeholders involved. Procurement stakeholders, including buyer, director of procurement, purchasing agent, purchasing manager. Account payable stakeholder, including account payable clerk, account payable manager. IT department stakeholders, including system analyst, director of IT, business system analyst. Finance stakeholders, example, controller, CFO, accountant, or accounting manager. Audit or compliance stakeholders, including internal auditors or external auditors. Vendors. Vendors are the external stakeholder who supplies goods and services to the organization and will interact with the system to receive new purchase order and submit invoices to receive payments. Successful implementation of Dynamics 365 to support source-to-pay processes require collaboration and coordination between these stakeholders. With that, I will hand over to Adi.
Thanks, Matthew. Now let's talk about business process areas of source-to-pay. So the source-to-pay process is the process of sourcing, procuring, and paying for goods or services from external sources. The source-to-pay process aims to optimize the efficiency, accuracy, and transparency of the sourcing and procurement cycle and improves the cash flow and vendor relationships of the organization. The various business process areas in source-to-pay includes define, procurement, and sourcing strategy. This business process area involves defining of sourcing and procurement strategies by analyzing spend data, identifying cost-saving opportunities, selecting the appropriate sourcing method, ensuring compliance requirements are met, and proper approvals are completed before any procurement transaction can be processed, and negotiating contracts with vendors. Define procurement catalogs. This business process area covers defining the procurement catalogs by creating a standard list of goods and services that can be purchased by the organization. It also covers the setup of pricing and availability information and keeping the catalog accurate. In Dynamics 365, this process includes not only internal catalogs and categorization of products for procurement, but also external catalogs for punch-out. Manage vendor relationship. This business process area involves managing vendor relationships by identifying and selecting qualified vendors and negotiating contracts. It also covers monitoring vendor performance and maintaining a positive relationship with vendors. There are processes for creating vendor records either manually or through the application process for a vendor through an external vendor collaboration portal. Procure materials and services. This business process area includes creating purchase requisitions, request quotations, purchase orders, and purchase agreements. It also includes communications with vendors about the purchases either manually, electronically including EDI, or using a portal such as the vendor collaboration portal. The purchase orders may also come from other business process areas such as project to profit or plan to produce. Receive materials and services. This business process area, which is part of inventory to deliver, includes registering and receiving the items or service. If the supplier shares information about products that will be shipped, the details can be used to pre-register the products. When the item registration is complete, based on arrival of stock at the inbound docks of the warehouse, the stock is updated accordingly. Process vendor invoice. This business process area involves processing vendor invoices by verifying invoice accuracy, matching invoices to purchase orders and goods receipts, and performing two-way or three-way matching. The invoices can be received and processed manually using automation or EDI, for example. Dynamics 365 also provides invoice register functionality for quick entry to accrue the expense. Issue and settle vendor payment. This business process area involves paying vendors according to the agreed-upon payment terms and ensuring that payments are made accurately and on time. Using the invoice payment proposal feature within Dynamics 365, invoices can be settled manually or via automation. It also supports payment formats including but not limited to checks, electronic payment, credit cards, and more. The process includes a communication with financial institutions and generation of files or documents to be sent to the vendor either through mail or electronically. Process vendor rebates and incentives. This business process area involves managing and tracking rebates and incentives offered by vendors. It also covers royalty and broker contract management, making sure that the organization receives the full benefit of these programs. While source to pay is a business process that encompasses the steps for sourcing and procurement, it also ties into most of the other standard business processes as shown here. And in general, when we're looking at business solutions for sourcing and procurement, we should think and talk about how someone might use each and all of these processes. Source to pay is by no means a process that operates in a vacuum. Now let's talk about the first business process area in source to pay, define procurement and sourcing strategy. So defining procurement and sourcing strategy is a critical step at the beginning of implementation. This will continue to be refined over time as your business and operations change and evolve to support your organization's goals and objectives. Sourcing and procurement strategy are outlined for both materials and services that are needed within your organization. During this process, the sourcing or procurement teams collaborate with several different departments focusing on three primary areas: price, cost, lead time, and quality. So defined procurement and sourcing policies is required to reduce financial risk that organization is taking and ensure compliance requirements are met and proper approvals are completed before any procurement transactions can be processed. Defining procurement process is required to outline overall procurement strategy for both materials and services that is needed for the organization. This includes the review and approval processes for purchase agreement, purchase orders, purchase requisitions, and requests for quotation. Creating and updating vendor price contracts after selection and evaluation of vendors and analyzing product proposals is required for procurement and sourcing to establish consistent pricing, streamlining the processes, negotiate effectively, and to automate pricing. Let's look into the first use case of creating purchasing policy. So in Contoso Entertainment System, which manufactures, distributes, and installs home electronic equipment and have multiple distribution channels, Inga, who is a procurement manager, wants to create a purchasing policy for Contoso Entertainment System that automatically creates a purchase order for approved purchase requisition, only allows employees to see office supplies catalog of Contoso Entertainment System while creating purchase requisition, and allows users to only have access to the following categories while creating a purchase requisition: The categories are office machine and office and desk accessories. Let's dive into the system to see how this can be set up. So we'll first go to procurement and sourcing, set up policies and purchasing policy to set up the procurement policy. For Contoso, we will create a new procurement policy called as procurement policy Contoso, and then we'll select the company to which this is going to be applicable to. Now we're going to select the catalog for the policy in the catalog policy rule, and in the category access policy rule, we're going to select the categories, that is, they are office machines and all the related subcategories, followed by office and desk accessories for this policy. Once these are selected, we move on, and finally, in the purchase order creation and demand consolidation rule, we will select the final policy rule that needs to be applied, which is when a purchase requisition is approved, we would like the purchase order to be automatically created. So now, as you can see, that the purchasing policy is set up for Contoso Entertainment System. Now let's talk about the second business process area in Source to Pay, which is defined procurement catalogs. So defined procurement catalogs gives organizations the ability to configure internal catalogs and external catalogs for use in the source to pay process. Items and services can be organized and added to catalogs to be used during purchase acquisition and purchase order creation. Alternatively, categories outlined within the catalogs can be used at the purchase acquisition purchase order levels where an item or service number doesn't exist. The procurement catalog structure is usually defined at the start of an implementation project. The catalog hierarchy gives you the flexibility to add new categories or modify categories when appropriate to meet your business needs. Determine which products you want your employees to be able to order and from which vendor. You can show or hide specific products in a catalog node, or you can show or hide products within a node. We can also decide how to allow the selection of approved vendors for specific procurement categories in Dynamics 365 supply chain during purchase acquisition process. Once the catalogs and categories have been configured for use, restriction can be put into place, ensuring that correct employees have appropriate access to set of items. This access is controlled by purchasing policy in Dynamics 365 supply chain. We can configure access to external catalog of a vendor, therefore avoiding the need to maintain vendors in the company's master data. The shopping cart on a vendor's website is converted to requisition lines that have the correct product information. You can ensure that the product and price information that you subsequently process in supply chain management is accurate and up to date. Now let's look into the use case of assigning vendors to catalogs. So we have the same Contoso Entertainment System, which is manufacturing, distributing, and installing home electronic equipment and have multiple distribution channels. So Inga, who's a procurement manager, wants office machine procurement category to be purchased only from vendors 1001 Acme Office Supplies and US 102 Tailspin Parts only, right? So when we go into the system, first we go into procurement and sourcing and procurement categories. Here we will select the procurement category office machine, and in the vendor fast tab, select vendor 1001 and US 102 as we would like to procure only from these vendors for office machine procurement category. Now, once they're selected, when we go to the procurement catalog, which was selected in the procurement policy, you will see that the vendors for the corresponding category is populated over here. And this will ensure that this is only purchased from vendors 1001 and US 102. I will now hand it over to Matthew to take this forward with managed vendor relationship business process.
Thanks, Adi. So now let's talk about managing vendor relationship. Vendor relationship management is the practice of building and maintaining strong and mutually beneficial partnership with the suppliers of goods and services that support your business. This process can help you reduce costs, improve quality, mitigate risk, and achieve your strategic goals. The process starts by identifying the possible vendors who can procure the goods or services required for your business. It can be achieved through the vendor collaboration portal. In Dynamics 365, you can create vendor accounts to keep track of your vendors and their transactions. You can assign vendor groups, category, addresses, contacts, and other information to each vendor account. and add them to the required legal entity if needed. Then we'll manage and update the vendor along your relationship with them. Vendor performance evaluation is a process of measuring and improving the quality and value of the services or goods provided by your vendors. It can help you establish and achieve your goals, build a stronger relationship, and mitigate risk. Let's look into the third use case, creation of vendors. Contoso Entertainment System manufactures, distributes, and installs all electronic equipment and have multiple distribution channels. Ingrid Modotier, Procurement Manager, wants to create a new supplier, Lightware, with whom Contoso would like to enter into a purchase agreement. So as Inga, Procurement Manager, I will create Lightware. So for that, I will go to Account Payable or Vendors, and I will create a new vendors. So here you can see that we have, I would say, an automatic number, but you can also have some manual number, depending on how you have set up your number sequence. This information will help to identify your vendors. Then you have the type of your vendors. It can be a person or an organization. If we select a person, we have some other field like first name, last name, and all the information related to a person. In this use case, we'll use the organization. So we'll define the name of the vendor. So we see here it will be Lightware. And you can see that we have already worked with some Lightware company. So I will select the first one, the Lightware. And you can see that we have some address. That I will talk to you the address later. Then we'll define the group of vendors. So group of vendors is mainly, I would say, used for financial perspective, but it also can be used to classify your vendors. So in this case, I will use the vendor 10. And then you have also a lot of information here in these tabs. But the most important is the language. So it will also help you to define in which, I would say, language you print your document. Then you can see the address, for example, but this address has come from the parties that we have selected before, so Lightware, that we are already working on, and we have also the contact information. So in this case, the phone number and the URL of the website. Other important topics is the purchasing demography, where we define the currency where we interact with these vendors. And you have a lot of also other information to segment your vendor. Then we can add these vendors to another legal entity. So here we can select another legal entity. For example, Contoso in France. And when I will click on OK, it will create this vendor into the other legal entity. Now let's move on the next process. It's procure material and services. The procurement of materials and services within the source-to-pay business process focuses on efficiently meeting the organization's need by acquiring essential materials or services. It covers the activities that are required to rate the order to the external vendor. The goals are to ensure the availability of materials and services for the organization and to efficiently manage inventory levels and costs. Create purchase order, create purchase requisition. To initiate the procurement process, a purchase requisition is created that identifies internal needs. Create request for quotation. The organization uses the requisition for quotation process to gather competitive bids and select the most suitable supplier. Create and update purchase order. The purchase order provides the detail about the term and condition of the transaction. Confirm and send purchase order. It authorizes the supplier to fulfill the order. Create purchase agreement. The purchase agreement processes allows for the creation of contract that commits the organization to buying a specified quantity or amount over time through multiple purchase orders. Return items to vendors. This process allows to return products to your vendor that are defect or not meeting your quality standard or overstock, for example. Now let's look at the first processes. Create purchase requisition. A purchase requisition is an internal document that authorizes the purchasing department to buy items or services. Depending on the setup of your organization, you can create purchase requisition for products that your organization uses. A purchase requisition can be subject to a workflow, and the workflow can be set up as a single document for review or route each purchase requisition line for review. After a purchase requisition is approved, it can be used to generate a purchase order, which is an external document that the purchasing department submits to the vendor. After you create the purchasing requisition in Dynamics 365, the items or category require is specified the purchase requisition along with quantity and date. The purchase requisition is subsequently submitted. Purchase requisition can then be reviewed by the purchasing agent to validate the detail in the purchase requisition and update price if required. After review of the purchase requisition, it can be submitted into the workflow for approval by the requester manager. For example, when the purchase requisition is raised for an amount exceeding $1,000, it's required an approval from manager. On the internal system, manufacturers distribute and install own electronic equipment and have multiple distribution channels. Procurement, HR assistants, wants to raise a request for a toner cartridge and a paper shredding machine for work purpose. Contoso Entertainment System have a workflow where any purchase requisition raised is sent to the purchasing agent for review. They also have a purchasing policy that all purchases above $1,000 requires an approval by the manager before a purchasing order is created. In this use case, we'll first create the purchase requisition as HR assistant. The purchase agent will review and update the purchasing requisition. Based on the workflow, the requisition manager will approve the purchase requisition, and purchasing policy is set up to auto-create purchase order from approved purchase requisition. As Brooke, HR assistant, I need to create the purchase requisition, so I will procurement and purchase requisition prepare by me. So I will create my purchase requisition. I will define a title, but we have also the purchase requisition number that is already filled, 186. I can add some information, so you can see that the status is on draft, it's for consumption. We have also some dates, and we can also select a reason. So I will select general supply, and I will put the details, some comments, why I need this information. Then I will add some lines. So here it's for Brooke, it's for the legal entities USMF, because we can have some for several legal entities. And I will select a category in this case. So toner. I will put the name toner cartridge. I want to have 10 quantity, and I will define the unit. I don't have any price at this stage, so we'll leave it as blank. And you can see the status is draft. You have also the address, so I can change the address, but in this case, I will leave this as is. I will add a second line with also the procurement category for the paper shredding machine. So I select my paper shredding machine. I will put also a name. I will put my quantity 2 and define also my unit. You can see here, this is the same. I will leave the price as blank and the status is approved. Now, as I have completed my purchase requisition, I want to submit it. So I will go to my workflow and click on submit. So when I have this information, I can put a comment to explain why I need this purchase requisition. Then I will click on submit. So now, let's take the role of the purchasing agent, Alicia. So here I will go to my procurement and sourcing. I will go to my purchase requisition assigned to me. And you can see that we have our purchase requisition 186. So I will go into the detail because I need to fill some information. So I can see the legal entity and I see the quantity, and now I have to update the price. and the vendor. So I click on edit and I will add the price, so $80 and $350. And we'll select also my vendors. So I know already my vendors that can supply these items, where we select them. As I have complete this information, I can also add some other charges and discount if it's needed. And now I will submit and I will complete this workflow. So I will say that I have completed the purchase requisition. So now it will go to the next steps. So now I'm logging as the requisition manager. So I go in procurement again, purchase requisition assigned to me. And I can see the same purchase requisition. So when I go to the detail, I can look, it's for Brooke. I can check the price, all the information I'll fill. I feel comfortable to approve this one. So I go on the workflow. So here I have several options. Approve, reject. I can request or change or delegate. Here, for this single case, I will approve this purchase requisition. And I can put also a comment. And you come back to Brooke. So Brooke wants to see where is this purchase requisition. So I will go to purchase requisition prepared by me. You can see that the status be closed. And now if I go into the detail, I can see also that all my lines are closed and the status closed. And you can see also the reference of the purchase order. So it's here at 4052. And we'll see in the next steps. Now, let's look into the next use case, the purchase inquiry. After you create the purchase order in Dynamics 365, you can inquiry your vendor to validate price, quantity, date, and so on. Purchase order approvals helps organization to run a workflow before confirming the purchase order. For example, when a purchase order is created and raised for an amount exceeding $1,000, it's required an approval from manager. Any changes that are made to confirm purchase order can have a significant impact on downstream processes, such as planned production, service work, or sales orders. So changing features help organization to track and validate all change done to the purchase order. A purchasing policy consists of a set of policy rules. For example, this catalog policy rules specify that the consumer system catalog must be used for internal procurement. After the purchasing policy is associated with the particular organization, employees of that organization see the consumer entertainment system catalog when they create requisition. Purchase requisition for toner cartridge and paper shredding machine of Brooklyn was accepted, and the purchase order was already created. So Alicia Sandburn, purchasing agent, wants to inquiry the vendor Acme of his supplies to validate the delivery date. Alicia Sandburn received the confirmation from the vendor that these items will be delivered on the 21st of July 2023 to Brooke. Now let's jump into the demonstration. So I'm logging as Alicia Sandburn. So I go to my workspace of purchase order preparation. Here you can see that we have a lot of fields, but I want to see the fields about approved without confirmation. So we select this one. We can find our purchase order 4052. And then I can query some information because I need to have the confirmation of the date and the price by my vendor. So here I click on inquiry. I can print this document. So when you want to print this document, it can be sent by mail or by a lot of colors. Here I will show it on the screen. So here you can see my purchase acquisition, my purchase inquiry. Now I will come back to my workspace. So now we can see that if I go to purchase inquiry, I can see my purchase order. So when I select my purchase order, I can see the details, and I need to update the delivery date. So here I will go to delivery. I will click on edit, and then I will use my confirm delivery date because it's the final delivery date. And I will do for the 2 lines. Then I can confirm my purchase order. So I have 2 options, confirm or confirmation. Confirm will send automatically the document without this screen. And here I will print and click OK. So it will send automatically the purchase order confirmation to the vendor. So it will complete this demo, and I will hand over to Ira.
So now let's review the processes on the accounts payable side. So payable processes start with the invoicing process. So this business process area involves processing vendor invoices by verifying the recorded invoice accurately, matching invoices to the purchase order or the product receipts, and then performing the 2-way or 3-way matching, and finally approve and post the vendor invoices. The invoices can be received and processed manually based on the purchase order or the product receipt, or using automation such as invoice capture solution that automatically creates the vendor invoices from the digital invoice images, or you can also create and receive invoices using EDI. The vendor invoice register also lets you quickly enter invoices that don't reference a purchase order, so that you can accrue the expenses. There are several ways to review accuracy of vendor invoice using the matching policy. For example, invoice total and the registered total are not equal, or the invoice contains some unallocated charges, or invoice contains lines where the invoice quantity is less than the matched product receipt quantity. Such capability can help accounts payable clerk and managers process vendor invoices more efficiently. It also helps reduce the errors and inefficiency that can occur when the information is manually entered and processed. Organization might issue prepayments or advance payments to vendors for goods or services before those goods or services are fulfilled. To minimize the risk, you can track the prepayments by defining a prepayment on a purchase order. For this, a prepayment invoice can be created that is associated with the purchase order. If vendor invoice policy is configured, vendor invoice policies are run when you post a vendor invoice by using a vendor invoice page, and when you open the vendor invoice policy violations page. You can also configure the vendor invoice workflow to run vendor invoice policies every time that you submit an invoice to the workflow. Now let's see a use case for the vendor invoice. April, who is an accounts payable clerk, receive an invoice for toner cartridges and paper shredding machine from vendor 1001. This use case show how vendor invoices will be entered and posted based on the purchase order and product receipt. So now let's log into the system. I am logging into the system as accounts payable clerk. I will first go into the procurement and sourcing accounts payable module, and then we'll see purchase order received but not invoiced. So here it will show me all the purchase orders which are received but not invoiced. We are specifically interested in purchase order 4052. So let's go ahead and look at all the details. This purchase order, as you can see, is in received state. So we'll go into the purchase order 4052 to receive all the details. The items all look correct, the price and everything looks correct. Let's review the matching policy defined on the line. So if we go and check the lines, the matching policy is defined as 2-way matching for this purchase order. So again, we'll go back, we'll select this purchase order 4052 and we'll generate an invoice. So once we click on generate invoice, it will take us to a generate invoice page where all the details of the purchase orders or the product receipt will be transferred onto this invoice. So let's specify a vendor invoice number first. So let's specify vendor invoice 4052. Let's specify a meaningful description that this is for purchase order 4052. Let's also specify the invoice date. So now we have specified all the details. As you can see on the header, the match status is not performed, but at the line level, the prices are matching. So price match status is passed. But let's say the price which you record in the invoice is different than purchase order. So I will just change here a different price and you will see that price match has failed. right? So you can see this detail in the line details as well. Alternatively, you can also click on the matching details for this form, and you will see all the discrepancies in price, discounts, and unit price, and you will see that it is not passed because there is a discrepancy. For this demo, let's change back the price back to the original price to 80, so that we can compose the invoice. So we'll basically go ahead and change the price back to 80. You will see the price match is again changed to pass. Now we can go ahead and click the update match status. So that should pass, and update the invoice header to pass because there is no discrepancy of price or discount at this point of time. Everything looks correct. So we can go ahead and post this invoice. So as you can see, the invoice is now being posted successfully. We haven't been restricted by the price or discount or any mismatch or as such. So as you can see, the purchase order status has now changed to invoice. And if we refresh the page, this purchase order will no longer be part of this list page. Now, let's review the next process, which is review vendor payment and settlement process. So this business process area focuses on paying vendor according to the agreed upon payment terms, ensuring that the payments are made accurately on time, and settle them against invoices manually or using an automated process. Dynamics 365 allows setup and apply of various cash discounts. For example, if invoice is paid within certain days, specific discount can be applied. User can also define pay periods and cash discounts for each pay periods. There is also a possibility to apply cash discount even after the cash discount period based on the vendor terms. Organization can use payment proposals to generate and post vendor payments. Organization that pay vendors on a recurring schedule can automate the process of generating vendor payment proposals with certain criteria and schedule time. Dynamics 365 allows to use journals to manage promissory notes. When you use promissory notes as payment for vendor invoices, you debit the vendor account. You will typically settle the invoice with the promissory note on the due date when you receive a notification from the bank that the promissory note has been honored, and you can close the promissory note. In Dynamics 365, you can use the vendor payment proposal to settle invoices manually or using automation. Organizations might issue advance payments to vendors for goods or services before those goods or services are fulfilled. Such vendor invoices can also be marked for settlement. Occasionally, after a vendor payment has been posted, the payment must be reversed. You can void unposted checks after they have been generated, but before they have been posted. If the generated payment is done as an electronic fund transfer, you can reject the payment before it is posted. After a payment is posted, payment reversal process can be used. Now, let us review a use case for issue and settling the vendor payment. Oscar, who is the accounts payable manager, will review the vendor invoices 4052 due for the payment for vendor 1001. Oscar will generate the vendor payment and settle the payments against the vendor invoice to close the open vendor transaction. So now Oscar is logging into the system as accounts payable manager and will log into the vendor payments workspace. As we go into this vendor payment workspace, you will see different tiles such as vendor payment not posted, vendor payment run assigned to me. There are other tiles as well, invoice past due, vendors on hold. And then there are some process automations available if you want to do a vendor payment run, along with the vendor transaction steps. Here we want to create a vendor payment journal. So we'll just click on the new vendor payment run. We'll select the vendor payment journal, and now we can go on to the lines. For this demo, we would like to use the payment proposal. So for that reason, we will click on the payment proposal and click on create payment proposal. Here you can specify different criteria for which vendor you want to do the payments. So here I'm specifying vendor 1001 and we'll click OK. Now the system will show us all the vendor invoices which are due for payment. So here we can see all the invoices. We are specifically want to pay vendor invoice 4052. So we will select all of the invoices and remove them from the list for time being. So we'll click yes. So now only vendor invoice 4052 is remaining, and we'll click on create payments. As we click on create payments, the payment lines will be created based on the vendor invoice line. So as you can see, it automatically populates the vendor, the amount for vendor invoice, and it also populates the offset account and method of payment. In this case, the method of payment is check. The payment status is showing as none. So let's go ahead and generate the payments. Method of payment is automatically selected. The bank account is automatically selected. We'll click OK, and we'll be able to see the bank account and the check number. So for this demo, let's print a check on the screen. Let's click OK. And once we click OK again, we should be able to see a check generated. Now let's go ahead and see the check which is being generated. So as you can see, the check is being generated for Acme office supplies for $1,500, and you can also see the payment advice at the bottom. So now the vendor payment line payment status is sent, and we can see the marked transaction. So here you can see this vendor payment is automatically settled against this vendor invoice 4052. So using this payment proposal process, you have automatically settled the transaction. So everything looks good. So we'll go ahead and post this vendor payment journal. So this concludes the demo of using a vendor payment journal using the payment proposal and how you can settle your vendor payment against a vendor invoice. Now, let's talk about the vendor rebates and incentive process. Vendor rebates and incentive is a crucial aspect of financial management within an organization, playing a pivotal role in strengthening the vendor relationship. Rebate programs are structured schemes or agreements established between the organization and vendors. These programs outline the terms, conditions, and criteria for providing incentives such as volume-based discounts or promotional offerings. Dynamics 365 allows users to define and manage these programs to optimize collaboration with vendors. Rebate eligibility criteria refers to a specific condition or requirement that must be met for a transaction or activity to qualify for a vendor rebate. Rebate agreement can define such criteria. For example, cumulative purchase by invoice or specific periods such as week, month, year. Basis of rebate calculation can be based on gross price or net price. Basis of rebates can be by quantity or amount, or rebate by percentage, fixed amount, or amount per unit. Dynamics 365 enables vendor rebate agreement approval process by configuring the vendor rebate approval workflow. Vendor claims can be automatically created based on the vendor rebate agreement setup. If the vendor agreement is set up to claim rebate by invoice, then when each vendor invoice is posted in the system, vendor claim will be automatically calculated. Each vendor claim will then be approved and processed. Vendor rebate transaction posting to accrual ledger account can be reviewed after the processing, and processed rebate transactions will reduce the vendor balance by creating a debit entry for the rebate amount, reducing the overall liability to the vendor. Organization can reduce the administrative burden and errors that are associated with monitoring promotion performance and processing claims, and drive better future negotiations with vendors about rebates by efficiently reviewing and analyzing vendor rebate performance. Let us review a use case for processing a vendor rebate. Sarah, who is an accounts payable manager, would like to process the vendor rebate as per the rebate agreement. Sarah will review the rebate claims for vendor 1001 and will approve and process the vendor rebate. For this demo, I'm logging into the 365 and I'll go into the procurement and sourcing and vendor rebate agreement. Here you can see I have an approved vendor rebate agreement for vendor 1001 item T0020. And here you can see cumulative purchase by invoice. And it is on gross amount. Rebate line breaks is by quantity. So if there are 10 to 20 quantity purchased, then rebate amount will be 15. If it is more than 20, the rebate amount will be 20. So now let's go ahead and look at the purchase order. This purchase order is already confirmed and invoiced. So when this purchase order was invoiced, vendor rebate claim was automatically created. But let's verify the quantity, the unit price for this item T0020 and for this vendor US 1001. You can see the invoice is already posted Invoice number is 4327. Now let's go ahead and look at the vendor rebate claims. So as you can see, the vendor rebate claims 28 is in calculated state. This was automatically created for $500 for that vendor and for that item. Let's review all the details in this vendor rebate claim, that this is for this item, vendor, this purchase order, and quantity was 25. So based on that vendor agreement setup, the rebate amount is 500. Now we got an approval from vendor that this rebate is approved. So we'll go ahead and approve this rebate. So as soon as I click OK for approval, you will see the vendor rebate claim status has changed to approved. We can go ahead and look at the rebate transaction as mentioned earlier. It create a rebate accrual journal for $500. Now we can go ahead and process this vendor rebate claim. Again, this is for vendor 1001 and it will be processed. So as you can see, vendor rebate claim 28 has been completed now. We can again go ahead and look at the rebate transactions. The accrual journal which was posted earlier will be reversed, and now the debit entry was created as part of a vendor rebate 28, and now this will reduce the overall liability to a vendor. So this is pretty much what we had in mind for today's session, where we discuss end-to-end business processes from source to pay, and we wanted to show business processes along with the use cases and demo. So in terms of resources, here we have listed some of the resources. The first one is to learn about end-to-end scenarios and business processes that Dynamics 365 supports out of the box. There are links for some of the new AI capabilities, how to confirm purchase orders. We have also linked for previous tech talks and definitely the Learn site where you can learn more about procurement and sourcing features, accounts payable features, and things like that. And as always, we would love to engage with you on Yammer. We do have a couple of Yammer groups which you can be part of and ask your questions, provide your feedback. Product team also monitors this Yammer group regularly and can provide you the guidance or if you have any questions. I think with that, let's go ahead and open up for questions. Adi or Matthew, have you seen any questions in the chat, in the Q&A session?
Yes, Hiren, we have answered most of them.
All right. If there are no more questions, then I think probably we can conclude today's Tech Talk. Once again, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.